Hello, BookTube, and welcome to another weekly reading vlog. These are the books that I've been reading this week. But before we get into that, I've got a bit of a book haul to report on. One of the books I've started already, so it's also included in my weekly reading. But I've picked up these three books this week. And two of these books I picked up at Book Street, which is a street in Saigon that sells books. There's a few different shops, including some used bookstores. And I had some time after work on Thursday, so I was perusing Book Street and found a couple books that caught my eye. One is a comic book. So this will fit nicely into my comic book reading project. And this is The Invincibles, which I've heard of but never read. I think the only reason I've heard of it is because I keep seeing videos for it on YouTube. For whatever reason, the YouTube algorithm sends them my way, probably because I watch a lot of superhero junk on YouTube. So perhaps a sign that I'm spending too much time on YouTube. But there is some sort of TV series based on this. I forget if it's Amazon Prime or Netflix or something like that, but some sort of TV series based off of this comic. So that's all I know about it. And with that limited knowledge, I may have given this a pass, except it was at a bargain price at a used bookstore, 380,000 Vietnamese dong. So about $15, and it's originally priced at $40. So for $15, that's a bargain for a hardcover color comic. So I decided to pick that up. Now I'm not going to start that until I finish off the comic book that I'm currently reading, which is Astro Boy, but it's on my shelves now, and I'll maybe read that as my next comic book. The other one I picked up was Reading the Old Testament. So this is going to be a companion to my project of reading through the Old Testament. And I not only picked this up, but I have now read the first 36 pages of it. It's from a religious perspective. So the first chapter especially was a little bit heavy on, this is important because it's a dialogue with God and some of that religious talk. But flipping through the book, it looks like there's going to be a lot of useful information in here. And in the second chapter already, I'm getting some useful information on the geography of Israel and some maps of the different peoples and the history of the area, which is interesting. So I'm hoping this will be a nice supplement to my reading of the Old Testament. And like I said, I'm 36 pages into this so far, so it is counting towards my weekly page counts for this week. Now, the other book haul I have is A Gentleman in Moscow, which my book club at work has chosen for its next book. I've never heard of this before. It's available in Vietnam. It's not in most bookstores, but there was one guy who recommended reading this book. And he was able to find one bookstore up in Hanoi which sold it. And my wife helped me order it. Initially, it looked like they were all sold out, but then we actually did get a copy delivered. So because this is a book club book, I'm going to try and get to it as soon as possible. But I'm going to wait until maybe I clear out at least one of these other books first. And probably Robin Hood, because I'm almost done with that. So once I clear out Robin Hood, then I'll start this book for book club. Okay, so that book haul out of the way. Once again, these are the books I've been reading this week. So reading the Old Testament, I've already talked about that one. And speaking of the Old Testament, I've been reading the Old Testament. So I finished up 2 Kings and reviewed it this week, and then started 1 Chronicles, and I read 1 Chronicles 1 through 8, which is the genealogies, which was a little bit boring, but I made it through it. It's actually not so bad. I mean, I remember reading this when I was, 12 or something, and feeling like it was agony to get through all 8 chapters of genealogies. But it wasn't that bad. It reads pretty painlessly. The footnotes in the Jerusalem Bible are interesting. They point out a couple points where the genealogies contradict each other, which I would never have noticed on my own, because I'm not reading with that close attention, and I'm not going back and comparing the genealogies in different pages. But the footnotes alerted me to that. So anyways, up to 1 Chronicles 9. So I'm all the way through the genealogies, and we'll start in on the narrative from the next chapter. This one, I held this up, but actually I've not read any pages out of this week. Last week I had finished up Oedipus the King by Sophocles. I reviewed that this week, and then I watched the 1957 movie version of it, which is available on YouTube, and reviewed that. And now I'm watching the 1968 version, which is also available on YouTube. Now, because I've got jobs and 2 kids and don't have a lot of time to myself, I've been watching these movies in like 20-minute chunks before going to bed. So, I'm able to fit in like 20 minutes of a movie every night. I'm about 20 minutes into the 1968 version now. So I'm going to keep on trying to watch that over the next couple of days, and then I'll come in with a review of that. And then once I have finished both of those movies, which appear to be the only versions of Oedipus the King, the only professional versions of Oedipus the King on YouTube, then I will continue on to the next play, which will be Antigone, also by Sophocles. But first I'm going to watch the movie versions of this play. Robin Hood, I am almost finished with now. I'm on page 238 out of 288. So 50 more pages to go. And I'm going to try and make it a priority to finish this so I can get started on my book club book, which, again, because it's book club, I need to prioritize it, need to finish it before we meet to discuss it. And then the Astro Boy Omnibus, this week I've read from page 290 to page 384. So just short of 100 pages. I'm actually really enjoying this. The stories are much better than I thought they would be. And they're stories for kids, but they're fun. It's enjoyable. Okay, and I think that's everything. So thank you very much, BookTube, and I will see you again next week.